In a rapidly changing world where public images are formed and reformed at dizzying speeds, a well-known public figure seemed to glimpse another, perhaps final, chance for a radical redefinition of her position. This potential opportunity materialized in a new project on a leading streaming platform, intriguingly titled With Love, Meghan. However, from its very first step, the path of this endeavor proved incredibly thorny and fraught with obstacles. It was overshadowed not only by highly reserved, sometimes even scathing, reviews from professional critics but also by a torrent of disparaging comments across the vast expanse of the internet. Viewers and digital users did not shy away from expressing their deep dissatisfaction. Their complaints often focused on the protagonist's seemingly arrogant behavior and her ostentatiously snobbish manner of communication, which was particularly evident in the much-discussed episode featuring Mindy Kaling, where every phrase seemed to add fuel to the fire of public condemnation. Yet, despite all the grim omens and the deafening negative resonance that swept through the media landscape, this show was, to everyone's astonishment, renewed for a second season. Its highly anticipated premiere is set for this fall, which in itself is a surprising fact. Such a decision by the streaming platform causes genuine bewilderment and even shock, as audiences are set to see 2 full seasons of this controversial project within just 1 calendar year. This is especially astonishing given that over the previous 5 years, all attempts by this well-known couple to create any content not exclusively focused on their personal experiences, complaints, and grievances related to the royal family had invariably proven entirely fruitless. How this project managed to break through the wall of criticism and achieve such success remains a mystery, the unraveling of which may lie in the upcoming episodes. But even with such apparent success, the new television spectacle barely reaches the level of demand comparable to their previous dramatic saga, known as Harry and Meghan. The project, titled With Love, Meghan, is literally teeming with episodes that can be described as highly eccentric and at times utterly absurd. Viewers have the opportunity to observe the main protagonist earnestly preparing the most mundane dishes while demonstrating complete ignorance of the basics of beekeeping, or behaving as if she is the first person in human history to dare to perform such an innovative act as slicing fruit. The list of similar moments could easily be extended. Moreover, the inescapable impression arises that the very concept of this show was almost entirely borrowed from Pamela Anderson's cooking program, Pamela's Cooking with Love, which only exacerbates the feeling of plagiarism and a deficit of creative approach. For many viewers following the developments, it becomes evident that the aforementioned person continues to stubbornly demonstrate that she is nothing more than an arrogant ex-royal who now, in essence, seeks to recreate the image of a member of the August family as if it were a theatrical performance or a masquerade. It is quite remarkable that, according to her own assertions, she now positions herself as a brand named saver. Doesn't it sound rather ironic, considering that, at the very least, representatives of the genuine monarchy demonstrate impeccable competence in properly registering trademarks? Indeed, the rebranding process, the transition from American Riviera Orchard to the new name Savor, which, incidentally, has already been accused of plagiarism, proved to be extraordinarily disorganized and, no less significantly, is still undergoing legal review, generating a whole series of ambiguities and confusion. In the recent past, the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle, with enviable persistence, advocated for the inviolability of her private sphere, actively challenging any attempts to photograph her children in court and demonstrating a sincere desire for a secluded existence in Africa with Prince Harry, similar to how his late mother did. However, if one looks at the current state of affairs, the picture undergoes radical changes. Now she graciously opens the doors of her residence to omnipresent television cameras, unhesitatingly shares photographs of her children on Instagram, uses their images to promote her own media projects, and, in essence, turns every aspect of her life into a source of income. It is quite natural that a unanimous opinion arises in the public consciousness. This is the complete opposite of the previously declared confidentiality. What is happening can be described as ever, or rather, it is particularly surprising that Meghan launched a brand with the somewhat cumbersome name American Riviera Orchard, repeatedly encountering bureaucratic hurdles in obtaining trademark approval. Despite the release of initial product batches such as jams and dog treats, the project remained stagnant for almost a year. Shortly thereafter, her own television project on Netflix was announced, and the press promptly informed the public that she intended to actively promote American Riviera Orchard products within this show. Subsequently, however, an unexpected delay in the show's release occurred, officially attributed to devastating wildfires in Los Angeles. Meghan presented this decision as an act of kindness, although many observers tend to see the true reason in her steadily deteriorating public image, which has always been on the verge of collapse. Amidst the ongoing transformations in the media landscape as public attention shifts and communication approaches are reevaluated, Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, presented her new ambitious project to the public named Savor. This brand replaced the previously announced but never realized American Riviera Orchard. Parallel to the project's announcement, an updated website was launched, a notable aspect of which was the involvement of her daughter, Lily, in the advertising campaign. This decision caused a significant stir in the media community and among the public, as the Duchess herself had previously made numerous statements vehemently condemning the exploitation of children in the public sphere, which naturally provoked lively discussions about the consistency of her principles and actions. In a video message addressed to a wide audience, Meghan, with her characteristic casualness and even a touch of playfulness, uttered the following: "Is this recording? Okay, maybe the secret is out. I'm shocked we've kept this a secret for so long. My show is coming out in 2 weeks, which I'm very excited about, and my business. Then Netflix became not just my show partner, but my business partner. Of course, there will be fruit preserves. I think by now it's clear to everyone that jam is my everything. But there are so many other products that I simply adore and use in my home. And now it's time to share them with you. So I can't wait for you to see it. Thank you, guys." This monologue not only unveiled the mystery surrounding the upcoming launch of her television project but also undeniably confirmed the significant expansion of her business and entrepreneurial activities. The Duchess specifically emphasized that her partnership with the streaming giant Netflix extends far beyond ordinary content production, now encompassing a full commercial component of her business empire. A separate part of her speech was dedicated to fruit preserves, which, according to her, have long been an integral part of her daily life and home comfort. Simultaneously, the imminent market appearance of many other household goods was announced, which she assured she personally uses with great pleasure in her daily life and is now ready to present to the wider public, sharing her preferences. At the very beginning of the video, literally in the first few moments, Duchess Meghan demonstrated a series of actions worthy of special attention. At the start of this digital narrative, within the first 2 seconds, she asked Prince Harry to hand her a mobile phone and then, with clear and unambiguous intent, announced that she was recording. This carefully planned maneuver, it seems, was designed to create a convincing illusion of casual spontaneity and genuine authenticity of the events taking place. Moreover, within this same brief episode, she very delicately yet quite insistently drew attention to the fact that Prince Harry was at home. By doing so, she effectively dispelled any potential assumptions or conjectures regarding his possible stay in a hotel room, perhaps a permanently booked suite, which could have been interpreted as a sign of temporary residence or even a somewhat detached position in their shared life. In the caption to her message or address, the Duchess provided a clarification for the name Savor, specifying that it means "as it always was." Interestingly, some commentators and interpreters even offered an alternative translation, sounding like, "in the same way as always." However, the general public, showing its perceptiveness, did not miss the opportunity to immediately point out the redundancy of such an explanation. After all, "as ever" is a commonly used and basic expression in the English language that absolutely does not require such a detailed translation or deep linguistic analysis, and certainly is not a complex Latin phrase. In essence, as initially stated, this phrase simply expresses the idea of "as it always was," thereby emphasizing continuity, succession, or an unchanging state of affairs. For almost 5 years now, some media outlets have invariably concluded their videos with the phrase "as ever." In contrast, over the past 2 months, Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, has adopted the English expression "as ever" at the end of her Instagram messages. This circumstance was interpreted in observer circles as an attempt to monopolize this seemingly trivial phrase, as if it were available only to a select few rather than to any ordinary user. Rumor has it that Princess Diana herself used the expression "as ever." If this assertion were confirmed, such a fact would cause no surprise whatsoever, considering Meghan's obvious, nearly decade-long fixation on the image of the people's princess. In a purely metaphorical sense, if Princess Diana were alive, some restrictive measures against such blatant imitation would probably be needed. Fortunately, the insurmountable boundary between the world of the living and the world of the departed has become a sufficient obstacle. Regardless of whether Princess Diana ever actually uttered this phrase, the undeniable fact remains that the expression "as ever" itself has deep historical roots. Against this backdrop, Meghan's ambition to trademark this phrase appears truly absurd. Such steps are perceived as nothing short of a rush for quick enrichment, confirmed by the presence of 3 pending trademark applications for, as ever. The legitimate question naturally arises, is there any certainty that she will not abandon this name, as has happened in her past practice? In one of her recent video messages, she publicly claimed to have secured the name in 2022, continuing with the phrase, "And I've been waiting for the moment to share the name that I secured in 2022. Such a statement is true only with the caveat that the registration application was indeed filed in 2022. However, it is crucial to emphasize that as of today, it is still under review. Seeking to lend an aura of authenticity to her recent initiatives, the Duchess of Sussex referenced her previous project, the digital magazine The Tig, subtly hinting at its supposed significance in the contemporary media landscape. In her public statements, she persistently asserted that fans who had followed her activities since 2014, the launch of her online blog The Tig, were well aware of her unwavering commitment to the art of cooking, the skill of crafting, and her passion for gardening. She consistently presented these pursuits as fundamental components of her personal life, specifically highlighting the fact that for the past several years she had not been able to fully share these facets of her existence with the wider public. However, as stated, this long-awaited opportunity has now reopened. Emphasizing that information about her upcoming ventures had already begun to filter into the public sphere, the Duchess expressed a sincere desire for her audience to receive these tidings directly from her, before they were disseminated by external sources. Nevertheless, it must be stressed that the digital resource The Tig, mentioned by the Duchess, operated for only a 3-year period, which starkly contradicts the significantly earlier appearance of the original concept titled This Is Glamorous, presented to the public back in 2007 by its creator, Rosalind London. This circumstance significantly undermines the Duchess's declared originality of her endeavors. In this regard, the rhetorical question inevitably arises, how truly original are her ideas and approaches? Many informed observers analyzing the situation tend to believe that even in 2014, her lifestyle and wellness advice did not resonate widely with the audience and, in their conviction, the current state of affairs has not changed in the slightest, remaining constant to this day. However, according to some observers, the true source of inspiration for certain ventures is a small entrepreneurial project based in New York. This refers to the brand Savor NYC, which has openly expressed its deep concern about the Duchess's latest initiatives. Specifically, alarm is raised by how her energetic steps to secure trademark rights could potentially infringe upon the interests and rights of an already existing business. This statement from Savor NYC representatives meets with widespread sympathy, as their enterprise is a modest family business whose unique existence and originality are now under threat. Amidst these events, highly critical voices are also being raised concerning the Duchess's attitude towards the concept of family values. There are suggestions that her attention to family matters is primarily manifested when it comes to the public display of children in digital media, especially on Instagram, with the aim of attracting widespread attention. In addition to the already mentioned points, another notable circumstance is added to the list of possible borrowings. It is widely known that the famous Hollywood actress Gwyneth Paltrow actively follows the Savor NYC brand, being a subscriber. In light of the Duchess of Sussex's already established reputation for imitating Gwyneth Paltrow's style and creative concepts, few would be surprised if this very aspect served as a catalyst for the ideas behind her latest projects. These hypotheses are further supported by recent public appearances when the Duchess was seen wearing jewelry absolutely identical to that previously worn by Paltrow. Such incidents only heighten public suspicion of the deliberate reproduction of others' images and concepts. In the unfolding confrontation, the Savor NYC brand tirelessly defends its legal rights and business reputation. Company representatives are taking targeted steps, resharing posts that emphasize their originality and publicly showcasing samples of their own manufactured footwear, highlighting the authenticity of their products. Notably, their actions are accompanied by elegant yet perfectly clear allusions, such as the use of the phrase royally scandalous, which unequivocally hints at the essence of what is happening and expresses their clear position regarding the current situation. The widespread practice where small businesses are forced to wage an exhausting battle to defend their unique identity and registered trademark is naturally regarded as a highly immoral and reprehensible act. Against this backdrop, the symbol of the new project called Savor, as well as the name itself, raises justified and very serious suspicions of plagiarism. According to claims, it is an almost exact copy of the coat of arms of an obscure Spanish settlement which, unfortunately, lacks sufficient financial means or necessary legal support to effectively oppose Meghan and her powerful cohort of legal professionals. It is particularly noteworthy that, despite the almost complete visual identity of the images, the emblem variant proposed by Meghan is entirely devoid of color palette and any vital dynamism which, according to widespread opinion, serves as an expressive symbol of the inner emptiness and desolation into which she is alleged to have transformed. Following this, a remarkable metamorphosis occurred in the digital sphere. The Instagram account, initially known as American Riviera Orchard, was suddenly renamed Savor. In her video message, Meghan explained this shift, claiming that the previous brand name supposedly imposed limitations on her regarding the use of products grown exclusively in a specific geographical region. She unequivocally stated, "I thought, American Riviera sounds like a great name, but it limited me to things that were only produced and grown in that area." However, such an explanation raises many questions and seems quite paradoxical, especially considering the statements from Montecito farmers who claim to know absolutely nothing about the alleged production of jam supposedly made by them. It appears that she is trying to present this as a long-awaited, carefully guarded secret that she is finally ready to share with the world. In reality, it is most likely another hasty attempt at quick enrichment. This project, characterized by incomplete patent applications and an almost complete lack of any substantive basis, is clearly aimed at further promoting Meghan. At the same time, there is serious concern that children may be used in the content for its promotion. It is noteworthy that the supposed clothing line in question seems completely incomplete and underdeveloped. The initial demonstration lacked any labels or active product promotion, which unequivocally indicated its unfinished state. Moreover, Meghan was officially denied the right to use the name Spheria for clothing by an influential Chinese brand that supplies major global retailers. In January 2024, Meghan's legal representatives initiated the submission of an updated request, carefully removing all references to apparel from the text. Subsequently, her trademark application was approved. However, if approval indeed occurred, then a perfectly reasonable question arises: why is this entire process still under current review? And why wasn't the name announced at that moment instead of being hastily declared only now? While these pressing questions remain without exhaustive answers, attention is drawn to something even more convoluted and eccentric, also related to mysterious episodes. It is alleged that broad circles of TikTok users are actively ridiculing Meghan for being a haughty individual, full of arrogance, who believes she is achieving some kind of groundbreaking feat. It is implied that this opinion comes even from people who do not usually follow her eccentric actions. Her public persona is perceived as superficial and lacking genuine substance, to the point that even an ordinary citizen of the United States is forced to wonder something is clearly wrong with this person. First and foremost, public attention is inevitably drawn to the widely discussed video featuring the Duchess, the plot of which is undoubtedly familiar to many. In this episode, which became public knowledge, the Duchess sharply rebuffed Mindy Kaling's attempt to present her in a more casual and approachable light when Kaling uttered the phrase, "Meghan Markle ate at Jack in the Box." Unexpectedly, Meghan retorted, stating, "I'm a Sussex now." She then continued, clarifying, "I don't think anyone in the world knows Meghan Markle ate at Jack in the Box and loves it. It's curious that you persistently use the name Meghan Markle. I'm a Sussex now." Such an unequivocal assertion caused considerable confusion. After 5 long years of active engagement with the media, including appearances on Oprah Winfrey's iconic show, the creation of an extensive Netflix documentary criticizing the royal family, and numerous public appearances, not once did she proclaim that Sussex was her name. Thus, her response was perceived as an aggressive and undiplomatic display. Moreover, this statement proved to be far from the truth. Sussex is a historic county intrinsically linked to Harry's ducal title. He himself, as well as his legitimate heirs, officially bear the surname Mountbatten-Windsor, which is unambiguously confirmed in the official birth records of Archie and Lily. All this fervent rhetoric about Sussex supposedly being the same surname as the children who actually bear the Mountbatten-Windsor surname appears highly paradoxical. One inevitably wonders, is she even aware of such obvious contradictions? In the past, when discussing her deep connection with her descendants, the Duchess of Sussex expressed her thoughts as follows: "Do you have children? And you say, no, I share my name with my children. Yes. And it is. I didn't know how meaningful that would be to me, but it just means so much. You say, that's our family name. It is noteworthy that later, during the widely publicized interview with Oprah Winfrey, the same Duchess claimed that her involvement in the British monarchy had almost led to the loss of her own name and individuality. "It almost cost me my name. I mean, there's a loss of identity," she said then. Nevertheless, at present, to the considerable astonishment of the public, there is a noticeable desire to reclaim this name not only for herself but also for her offspring, who, it seems, do not use it as their surname. If Archie and Lily indeed bore the surname Sussex, similar to how the Wales children are known in educational institutions, this circumstance would be entirely understandable. However, their official birth certificates unequivocally record the surname Mountbatten-Windsor. It is noteworthy that neither Meghan nor Harry had ever previously expressed such a sudden desire to be associated with the Sussex title throughout all the preceding years. This situation is exacerbated by an obvious display of double standards, first declaring a loss of identity and name, and then actively striving to claim it. In light of these circumstances, the inevitable assumption forms that this may be another calculated strategic move aimed at exploiting the royal family to promote some new project or media show. It is clear that such video material was carefully planned to elicit a specific resonant reaction from the public. Interactions with Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, often lead to paradoxical situations where any story she publicly shares inevitably contradicts her own earlier statements. The British monarchy, as well as the general public, simply cannot keep track of these rapidly changing and conflicting narratives, which are constantly transforming. It seems her initial and unchanging goal has always been to maximize benefit from Prince Harry's resources and his extensive royal connections to secure a prominent position in the global community. Today, it appears the Duchess aims to use her Sussex title as a tool to demonstrate her high status to other influential figures, thereby distinguishing herself and emphasizing her exceptionalism. For, if one looks at the situation without embellishment, a reasonable question arises: what truly remarkable things can a Hollywood actress offer the world, an actress who never achieved significant success in cinema, and who has now fully dedicated herself to being an Instagram influencer, persistently trying to convince her audience of her culinary talents and offering concepts that the general public first saw when they became viral trends on Pinterest back in 2015? This individual's behavior in her own kitchen, which soon becomes clear is nothing more than an artfully equipped film studio, creates the illusion that she is on the verge of groundbreaking gastronomic discoveries. A clear example is a scene where she meticulously transfers peanut butter pretzels from one plastic bag to another, but with obsessive care attaches a label to them. With a clear hint of irony, it turns out this label is for her close friend, supposedly in case of an unforeseen allergic reaction to these very pretzels. Yet, moments earlier, she emphatically stated that these crispy peanut butter treats were his absolute favorite. One can't help but ask the rhetorical question: how can such contradictory logic even exist and be acceptable? She displays a similar degree of theatricality when routine actions such as slicing fruit and arranging it on a serving platter are presented as an event worthy of universal admiration and detailed discussion. With her characteristic fervent enthusiasm, she exclaims, "A rainbow is gathering here. See where a rainbow is gathering here." Naturally, fruits inherently possess a variety of vibrant hues, and this in no way indicates that she has magically endowed them with these colors. Such excessive self-admiration seems utterly unbearable. Then, adopting the guise of a wise mentor, she utters a truly trivial phrase: "Could you do this with one little strip for your kids for breakfast?" And it makes the morning so much more fun. To hear such a revelation that a simple strip of fruit for breakfast can be such a groundbreaking solution seems simply absurd. Truly profound, one is tempted to remark sarcastically. It should be noted that such a concept might have been considered groundbreaking back in 2007 when a book titled Creating a Fruit Rainbow was published, offering very similar ideas. However, in the current year 2024, it seems her main mission is merely to gather like-minded individuals around her and skillfully pander to their egos for performing utterly trivial actions. For instance, one acquaintance, upon barely glancing at a serving dish carefully laid out with vegetables, immediately expresses feigned admiration, exclaiming, "My God, how much effort you put into that." At the same time, one of the many internet users shared their opinion, unequivocally stating, "As someone raising children, I can fully attest that almost every parent has at least once engaged in playfully arranging fruits or vegetables for their little ones. There's nothing revolutionary, original, or truly exciting about it." This commentator then continued their reflections, delving into the theme of the invaluable nature of parental involvement in their offspring's lives. They emphasized, It's a genuine pleasure to be a parent deeply involved in the daily lives of your children. And often, such involvement proves to be an unaffordable luxury because modern people have to work and each of us is burdened with many urgent matters and obligations. But when a rare chance arises to snatch even a fleeting moment on a regular Saturday morning, Meghan, for her part, constantly disputes claims that her children spend most of their time under the care of a nanny. A legitimate question arises: if such statements had no basis, why would she refute them with such incredible fervor? After all, it would seem enough to simply let the facts speak for themselves without resorting to such insistent proofs. And finally, concluding her reflections, she utters words that inadvertently create the impression that she is immersed in the routine of extremely exhausting, ordinary work with an absolutely unregulated schedule which, according to her, has a very detrimental effect on both her mental state and overall physical well-being. How is it possible to maintain a public image while simultaneously broadcasting a picture of an ideal, serene life? With ample time for leisurely selecting the freshest fruits directly from her own garden and gracefully strolling through a spacious kitchen in a flowing satin silk skirt, and at the same time strive to appear to the public as a mother exhausted by labor whose sole, most cherished desire is undivided time spent with her own children, there is an urgent need for a clear definition of priorities. It is impossible to embody the image of some real-life Barbie. One cannot simultaneously occupy all these mutually exclusive positions. It is impossible to harmoniously combine such diverse roles, being at once a flawless influencer and simultaneously playing the role of a mother constantly battling circumstances. Even at significant events like the Invictus Games or during her public appearances to which she is invited, she invariably emphasizes the amount of time she manages to dedicate to her children. Phrases like "very sweet, enthusiastic children who are cheering for you from California" will be uttered even when they are completely out of context for the current conversation. And here, a perfectly reasonable question involuntarily arises: if she works so diligently, then why did she and Harry, in that particular year, according to officially filed tax returns, dedicate only 1 hour a week to work? She reportedly reminisced about her past habits, recounting how in Canada, while working on the popular TV drama Suits, she regularly hosted fellow actors. Emphasizing the vital importance of social connections, she advised, always try to invite actors or people you meet at the dog park. However, it's quite ironic that such statements came from her, considering the widely known fact that many of those she claimed to host do not currently have her contact information. It seems that after marrying Prince Harry, she significantly distanced herself from most of her former acquaintances. This situation is vividly illustrated by a remark that became known in the context of one event: "You need to come to Meghan Markle's Golden Globes. We don't have her number." On the eve of her new project's official launch, she released, and then very quickly removed, exclusive behind-the-scenes footage. This episode coincidentally aligned with the Prince and Princess of Wales' first joint public appearance in Wales after Kate's cancer diagnosis. Such a coincidence was perceived as a deliberate move, especially considering that the video was removed only to be reposted the next day, presumably according to a pre-approved schedule. This incident raised many questions about her true intentions. One of the most acute and thought-provoking themes permeating the entire show is Meghan's obvious desire to present herself as an approachable and witty person, which, however, instead of the desired effect, creates an impression of irritation or artificiality. For instance, at one point when she was demonstrating the cooking process, commentators noted a clear lack of enthusiasm, expressing it with the phrase, "This doesn't look like the joy of cooking." Observers were struck by why she froze so sharply and shook her head with such expressiveness. And when the chef allowed himself to interrupt her speech, which is a perfectly normal occurrence in a dialogue between two interlocutors, she directed that instantly recognizable gaze at the camera. It was her famous signature look, which Meghan is known to have given to her mother, Prince Harry, or anyone else who dared to continue speaking for more than a couple of seconds. Chef Roy Choi, addressing Meghan, expressed a deep conviction of their initial, almost predetermined connection, saying sincerely, "We should have met earlier. We are so alike." However, in response to this warm and open remark, Meghan merely gave him an expressionless, almost blank smile without uttering a single word. Undeterred by her silence and lack of reaction, he repeated, strengthening his point and trying to reach her, "But you and I are so alike. It's like we were meant to meet a long time ago." Instead of responding to this sincere observation, she immediately abruptly changed the subject, asking about his musical preferences. And then followed her strange, almost stunned look and then clear shock when Choi calmly admitted that he listens to metal. She was clearly bewildered and could not hide her perplexity. Her question sounded with clear astonishment, "How can you listen to metal?" In response to a direct question about what music he prefers to listen to while cooking, renowned chef Roy Choi unequivocally confirmed, "You listen to music when you cook." "I listen," he continued, describing his truly eclectic musical taste, which encompasses a very wide range of genres. According to him, he often immerses himself in the hypnotic rhythms of lyrical hip-hop, enjoys the complex and virtuoso melodies of jazz, and sometimes prefers more aggressive and powerful genres such as speed metal and death metal. When asked to clarify what speed metal entails, the chef concisely yet eloquently replied, "Just dark." However, it is precisely this episode where Meghan displays such pronounced surprise at others' hobbies, even if unconventional, that seriously calls into question the breadth of her claimed social circle. For if she truly had friends from all walks of life and cultures, as she constantly asserts, why would such ordinary, albeit unfamiliar, hobbies cause her such genuine shock? She would hardly be fazed by something as elementary as someone's unusual musical taste. It creates a distinct impression that she has rarely encountered a genuine diversity of interests and views. In one TV episode, Meghan showed viewers the process of cooking one-pot spaghetti, a dish she, by the way, stubbornly calls noodles. She particularly emphasized that when she embarks on this culinary creation, she prepares it for her entire family, including Harry and their 2 children. However, immediately, as if justifying or correcting herself, she hastily added, "Not that my kids eat tons of noodles, but I'll make enough to put leftovers in their lunchbox." Thus, when she begins the cooking process, this product, according to her own statements, is intended for her entire family. A very curious paradox is found in her reasoning regarding her children's eating habits. First, she categorically denies that her offspring consumes significant portions of noodles. Then, as if contradicting herself, she states her intention to prepare enough of the dish so that the leftovers can be neatly and conveniently packed into their lunchboxes. And again, after repeatedly denying the children's excessive fondness for pasta, she concludes her reasoning with a completely direct and unambiguous assertion, "My kids eat tons of noodles." This incessant sequence of denials and affirmations creates a very curious image, reflecting either her internal conflict or external performative behavior. Her constantly defensive answers clearly indicate that she is invariably poised to fend off potential attacks. Doubts relentlessly plague her. What will people say? Will they really think she allows her children to literally drown in an excessive abundance of pasta? Such a reaction distinctly underscores the extent of her deep focus on using her children's image to create a certain impression, the image of a so-called working mom. It is noteworthy that such a concept was considered groundbreaking back in the distant 1960s, which certainly casts doubt on its originality and innovativeness in the modern social context. It is particularly noteworthy that she prepares simple pasta, a dish that any college student with internet access or the basic ability to read instructions printed on the package can easily prepare. Yet, her immediate, almost instinctive response is defensive, "I don't let them eat that much." This fact serves as irrefutable proof of how diligently she strives to convey to the public the image of an ideal, impeccably healthy parent who meticulously controls every aspect of her children's lives. Then, into the same pot where the pasta was cooked, bright green chard and kale leaves are added, presumably intended to significantly enrich the dish with beneficial properties. In response to this culinary decision, the general public, particularly active in the online space, immediately reacted with a barrage of biting remarks, asserting that most children would hardly want to eat something like that. However, as internet users ironically noted, it is entirely possible that the impeccable Archie or Lilibet might be happy exceptions to this rule. Soon after this episode, one of the protagonist's friends, tasting the prepared pasta, exclaims with seemingly genuine delight that it is damn good. In response to such an ardent review, Meghan immediately bursts into loud laughter, repeating his words with obvious pleasure. A legitimate question arises as to what truly provokes such a boisterous, sincere, or perhaps carefully feigned delight when phrases like, "That's damn good," "Oh my God, that was so good," are heard on air. Nevertheless, it becomes perfectly clear that the presence of numerous friends within this show serves a single, strictly defined purpose: to tirelessly praise her, perhaps quite mediocre, culinary skills while expressing effusive, almost theatrical delight with exclamations like, "Oh my God, wow." Meanwhile, Meghan seems to devour every compliment with undisguised pleasure like an exquisite dish. Notably, she also initiated a specific moment, asking one of her companions to share a story that, according to her design, was meant to demonstrate her exceptional modesty. In response to her direct question, "When did we meet?" the reply was, "It was before you had an agent and you had to call and book your own hairdressers." Such a statement is presented as if she is a pioneer in this matter, as if it was an incredibly complex and laborious task requiring colossal effort, unlike the countless other people who daily face similar organizational issues. In her own deep perception, she has evidently already achieved the status of a living legend. At another moment, when an interlocutor utters the phrase, "This is so cozy," Meghan immediately picks up, "It's like that Beyoncé song," and then clarifies, "Cozy." However, a legitimate question arises, did Meghan truly listen carefully to the song Cozy? This song, being an energetic dance track, is absolutely not associated with the traditional notion of coziness, be it a warm cup of tea on a rainy day or leisurely enjoying a hot meal in a comfortable cafe. These images are usually associated with a true feeling of comfort. On the contrary, its deep meaning lies in self-sufficiency, self-confidence, feeling completely comfortable in one's own uniqueness, and, in particular, pride in one's affiliation with the Black community. Thus, there is not a single hint of literal coziness in the lyrics. Meghan probably just sought to create a catchy media reference to Beyoncé's name to attract additional attention to her show. It can be assumed that this time, no reciprocal message or mention from Beyoncé herself is likely to follow. It is worth noting Meghan's consistent approach to showcasing her children in the public sphere, which seemingly aims to create a more pleasant and accessible image. In one of her published videos, a vivid scene unfolds. The children return home from school while she, unhurriedly and gracefully, prepares fruit. And then, according to her own narration, they utter the phrase, "Mommy's prepping again." Meghan then delves into dreamy reflections, stating that her children will now invariably associate this moment with returning home from school and with the sweet aroma that fills the house when fruits are slowly cooking. "Oh, mommy's prepping again," she repeats as if emphasizing the desired effect. Undoubtedly, this is a clear manifestation of Meghan's characteristic style, which has already become quite recognizable. In another video, Meghan appears to be enthusiastically cooking pancakes, with that signature faint smile playing on her face. It gives the impression that she genuinely believes she is currently doing something truly innovative or even brilliant, which in itself cannot help but amuse the observer. However, the way she handles these pancakes, particularly how she flips them, involuntarily suggests that she does not feel relaxed or confident in the kitchen space at all. Her movements are more reminiscent of someone encountering a new culinary recipe or technique for the first time, which is, of course, absolutely natural and acceptable for any novice in this field. Nevertheless, this very moment sharply contradicts the image and idea that Meghan so persistently strives to convey to her audience. She assiduously tries to convince viewers that her personal experience and the culinary recommendations she offers are of exceptional value and absolutely indispensable for everyone, which ultimately lends an absurd, almost ludicrous, tint to this entire demonstration. Since Meghan appears to associate herself with the image of Barbie, she has acquired yet another profession, that of a beekeeper. It is quite ironic that she begins her video by stating, "We've been doing this for a year now." However, just 10 seconds later, she turns to a genuine beekeeping expert with a fundamental question: what's the lifespan of a bee? Fortunately for her, the reward for her activities apparently isn't tied to the depth of her thought process. She then offers advice: the most important thing is to keep a low tone when working with bees. And then, without any transition, she immediately starts making sounds resembling a bee's buzzing. A perfectly legitimate question arises: to whom exactly are her remarks addressed? As is well known, bees do not understand English. Or, perhaps, her knowledge of apiculture is drawn from the popular animated film Bee Movie? Her speech is filled with enthusiasm for the significant progress the hives have supposedly made over the past year, although she herself frankly admits that her personal presence at the beehives has been absent for many months. The narrative essentially begins with her heading to her bees accompanied by her beekeeper, whose tireless care for the apiary is undoubtedly key and primary. It is unlikely that anyone would seriously assume that the Duchess Meghan Markle personally dedicates herself to the painstaking care of her bees. However, she obviously needed a certain narrative deeply connected to beekeeping, a story about homemade honey gathered by herself. It is for this weighty reason that she resorted to the services of a qualified specialist in this field. Apparently, her direct visits to these tireless workers of nature can be counted on the fingers of one hand throughout their existence. When she finally extracts the honeycombs, her reaction betrays clear astonishment, involuntarily suggesting her first-ever encounter with such a process, accompanied by the exclamation, "Oh, this is truly amazing." Then, in her characteristic manner, she delves into reflections on how she had never previously felt a particular fondness for honey. But, she claims, thanks to direct involvement in this unique process, she suddenly gained a deep understanding and, according to her, now sincerely appreciates and loves this natural product. In this context, it is impossible not to detect a certain degree of irony in her words. She states, "I never loved honey. I didn't think it was bad. I just didn't crave it and I thought it was almost too sweet. And now, through this process, I appreciate it so much." Indeed, in her mind, any action or even the most mundane item must necessarily acquire a deeper, almost philosophical meaning, holding special significance precisely for Meghan Markle. However, upon close observation of the honey extraction process, it is impossible not to notice both her and the beekeeper periodically licking their fingers. Such an action certainly gives the impression of extreme, unhygienic practices, which is particularly concerning given that the entire concept of her new venture is built on the subsequent sale of the so-called homemade honey. Further in the narrative, the protagonist asks her companion, the beekeeper, how she should dispose of the significant amount of collected wax. This dialogue causes some bewilderment for the viewer, as it was previously assumed that the protagonist had been mastering the intricacies of beekeeping for an entire year. In response to her inquiry, as if by some unspoken agreement, both she and her interlocutor simultaneously utter the same word, candles. What to do with so much wax? Of course, make candles and nothing more. Such demonstrative synchronicity and obvious predictability create a strong sense of a carefully staged production completely devoid of any naturalness or spontaneity. One astute internet user aptly remarked that watching this act was akin to monotonously observing paint dry on a wall, and the reason for this feeling becomes perfectly clear. Meghan, it is asserted, completely lacks the depth and multifaceted character that could genuinely captivate and hold an audience's attention. Her public image is perceived as rather bland and uninspired, which seemingly compels her to resort to ostentatious and performative activities, whether it's the process of making candles or the imitation of beekeeping. Perhaps even highly extravagant antics, like sprinkling raw meat with decorative floral glitter, serve only as a desperate attempt to lend her persona a false sense of allure and contrived originality. First, the beekeeper reveals a rather intriguing fact to her. Pure beeswax possesses the remarkable ability to purify the surrounding air. This information profoundly shocks Meghan, and without holding back her emotions, she begins clapping animatedly, completely unconcerned about any potential stickiness on her hands. "Candles," she exclaims in a voice trembling with excitement. "I believe candles are indeed the perfect solution. Because burning a candle made purely from beeswax genuinely purifies the air." "Well, how about that? That's incredible. We're pollinating the world." And, of course, in a surge of these strong emotions, she tightly embraces the beekeeper, once again displaying her well-known penchant for physical expressions of emotion. It's not hard to imagine a typical dinner unfolding in Meghan's hospitable home. Let's say one of the guests, needing to use the restroom, asks her, "Oh Meghan, may I use your bathroom?" To which they receive not just an affirmative permission, but a whole flurry of emotions. "Oh yes, absolutely, but first, give me a big hug and these enthusiastic claps, even if thick sauce is dripping from my hands." Such an excessive emotional display seemingly serves no other purpose than an attempt to cleverly conceal or compensate for an apparent mediocrity of character. As further proof of her limited inventiveness, the example of her own product, bath salts, is often cited. Essentially, these salts were nothing more than ordinary Epsom salts mixed with a base oil. Observers also noted that Meghan was filming her own television show, and this seemingly occurred during the same period when she was actively promoting a parent network specifically created for grieving parents whose children had died due to the harmful influence of social media. This circumstance likely explains her somewhat frivolous behavior and that inexplicable, almost manic smile that lit up her face when Harry shared his profound thoughts on those who choose to end their lives. He said very serious words then. Before you know it, within 24 hours, they could take their own lives. Our children are young, 3, 5 years old. The entire show, in general, leaves a very peculiar and even strange impression, which is unsurprising as its main star herself seems to be a very unusual and eccentric figure. One only has to listen to her talk incessantly about something being inherently broken even when it's clearly not. And so the endless, sometimes meaningless conversations continue. She declares, "It's so significant that if you break something precious and valuable, it's not broken, that this break, and you taught me this, that this break actually makes it more beautiful. This break makes it more beautiful." One online user expressed their opinion, writing that her word salad and attempts to appear wise are her biggest flaw. However, the question arises, what else could be considered her most significant flaw? Perhaps it lies in a lack of genuine sincerity and a tendency to constantly appropriate others' images and ideas, akin to a form of intellectual or personal theft. Meghan persistently strives to cultivate an image of a profound and humble individual, inherently detached from the worldly pursuits of materialism and power ambitions. To this end, she meticulously cultivated a public image that includes activities like making homemade jam and honey, pursuits that were never mentioned in her previous public appearances or biography. She also undertakes to teach others the basics of gardening, although, in the opinion of many observers, she herself could benefit from learning the fundamentals of the craft. Upon reviewing archival footage featuring Her Royal Highness Kate, Duchess of Cambridge, from over 10 years ago, long before Meghan Markle was widely known, a clear impression emerges that the Duchess of Sussex has fully borrowed her relative's public persona. Notably, this aspect of the Duchess of Cambridge's personality did not receive widespread press coverage and, consequently, remained largely unknown to the general public unless they paid particular attention. For instance, as early as 2012, a reputable publication of the time reported, Kate was actively involved in canning, preparing jars of homemade strawberry and plum jam, which she then gave as gifts. Furthermore, the publication noted that on a typical weekend, William and Kate prefer to spend their time in a relaxed setting, making tea and toast. Such details were confirmed by a close family friend who recently visited them and testified to their simple, unpretentious home life, far removed from typical royal splendor. Remarkably, it is precisely this atmosphere and lifestyle that Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, is attempting to recreate and present in her recent media project. Currently, she is actively developing an initiative to sell homemade jams and teas. This activity aims to cultivate an image of an unpretentious, serene woman who is in complete harmony with her husband, constantly emphasizing that he does not spend nights in hotels, highlighting their stability and family life. Moreover, in one of her past videos, Kate demonstrated the process of making homemade chutney. Her narration, in this instance, was characterized by genuine modesty, devoid of any arrogant or condescending undertones. Her manner did not include phrases that could be interpreted as a display of new status, such as, "I'm a Sussex now," or "You know, I'm a Sussex now." Such remarks, delivered with a dismissive tone as if asking, "So what?" or comparisons like, "Do you listen to metal?" "No, you don't," are completely alien to her natural, open communication style and have nothing to do with genuine enjoyment of the cooking process. Her behavior always remained casual and approachable, far from any pretense. It is also known that Kate felt a certain nervousness about choosing a Christmas gift for the Queen. She deliberated for a long time on what gift she would give her own grandparents, aiming to find something truly meaningful. Ultimately, she decided to make a handmade gift, opting to prepare a special chutney, a recipe passed down through her family for generations. This gesture highlighted her desire for personal connection and respect for tradition. From Kate's characteristic way of presenting material, it is clearly evident that she does not aim to impose any concept or realize specific designs. Emphasis is placed on the fact that a lack of or insufficient culinary skills is not shameful or reprehensible at all. However, observing the natural grace and ease with which Kate approaches cooking and kneading dough vividly illustrates the profound dissimilarity between an individual genuinely passionate about their craft and someone merely replicating the appearance of a humble existence, creating the illusion of an omnipotent Barbie proclaiming, "I can do anything." According to external observers, the Duchess likely faces considerable difficulty in comprehending and accepting the authenticity of Kate's life journey, who transformed from a simple college student into a princess. This path is perceived as genuinely authentic for Kate, while the Duchess is burdened by the need to exert colossal efforts to construct an entirely new narrative. The reason lies in the fact that the narrative of transitioning from an ordinary life to royal status has already been firmly established by Kate and is deeply revered by millions of fans worldwide. However, the Duchess owes a genuine apology, according to the author, to Pamela Anderson for the undeniable and almost total appropriation of her own television project's concept. It is important to note that Pamela Anderson's cooking show premiered to the public in 2023. The analogies between the projects are striking. The titles of these ventures unequivocally evoke direct associations. Moreover, in the promotional videos for both projects, there's an identical scene where the main character exchanges a high five with a chef. Just a brief viewing of Pamela Anderson's trailer, in the author's opinion, creates a strong conviction that the Duchess should be held accountable for such blatant intellectual property theft. According to her own statements, her existence is a continuous cycle of learning and self-improvement. Cooking holds a special place in her heart, which she perceives not merely as routine meal preparation, but as a genuine art capable of elevating the most ordinary ingredients to the level of a refined gastronomic masterpiece. She found constant and genuine pleasure in transforming familiar components, imbuing them with a completely new, unique flavor. Both the creative act itself and its final embodiment invariably evoked in her genuine delight and a profound sense of satisfaction. She took particular joy in creating a complete, truly unforgettable experience for her guests. Offering bubbles, presumably drinks, further symbolized her genuine hospitality. Table setting was not merely a formal ritual for her, but a crucial element capable of creating the right atmosphere for relaxed conversation, fostering existing friendships, and forming new acquaintances. The kitchen undoubtedly served as a true sanctuary for her, a haven of inspiration, creativity, and genuine comfort. Her deep passion for gastronomy began many years ago, fueled by attentively watching countless cooking shows. Subsequently returning to her own garden, drawing inspiration directly from Mother Nature, she would meticulously begin creating homemade pickles and fragrant jams. However, it is worth noting that Pamela Anderson's approach to her culinary passion was significantly deeper and more enduring. She didn't just aim for a superficial understanding of the subject, instead she diligently attended a specialized culinary school and invited renowned culinary masters for comprehensive and in-depth training. For her, it wasn't a fleeting venture aimed at quick profit but a true immersion in a beloved pursuit that, in her conviction, required significant investment of time and diligent effort. Unlike attempts to achieve anything worthwhile without real effort for many years. Astonishingly, even the Duchess's promotional photo shoot for her own television show in a well-known magazine exhibits an almost absolute similarity to Pamela's analogous photo shoot intended to advertise her unique project. This resemblance extends to the finest details, from the characteristic gaze from under a wide-brimmed hat to the overall farm aesthetic, which eloquently emphasizes the idea, everything is homemade, as if straight from the countryside. Moreover, the single-line headlines on the covers of these prestigious publications turned out to be identical, causing genuine astonishment. Thus, Pamela Anderson's magazine cover proudly declared, "Returning to my roots." And the Duchess's magazine cover, as if echoing, repeated the very same phrase, "Returning to my roots." Such a coincidence undoubtedly appears as something utterly incredible and truly astonishing. Public chaos and dismay steadily continued to mount. This time, it seemed, even traditional pillars such as family ties or the birth of offspring could not serve as a reliable shield against widespread indignation. The responses that befell the new media product were as relentless and harsh as the poignant scenes that, apparently, were meant to evoke profound sympathy from viewers. In particular, one reputable publication commented on this, stating, "The Duchess of Sussex's new series is an exercise in narcissism filled with extravagant brunches, celebrity friends, and promotional inserts. So bland and tasteless, it's not even worth hate-watching. Boring lifestyle advice from someone who always has servants on hand, including for serving coffee to guests." This comment eloquently highlighted the general dissatisfaction with the content, emphasizing its superficiality and clear detachment from the everyday realities of most of the audience. Another influential publication also joined the wave of criticism, adding its own scathing assessment. It stated that the show simultaneously strains her ambition and her desire to be relatable in a way that never quite gels. Such statements indicated a deep internal dissonance within the project, where declared goals and chosen methods for achieving them were in clear contradiction, generating a persistent feeling of insincerity or even blatant falsehood. One observer carefully analyzed the current state of affairs, noting a curious detail. Perhaps the most intriguing aspect was that the Duchess did not receive a full-fledged premiere, which is typically a standard for media projects. Even celebrity documentaries are granted large-scale premiere screenings. Furthermore, with every new season launch of any show, a premiere is invariably held, inviting media representatives, notable personalities, and often all of them view the showing together. However, as has been said, Hollywood apparently shows little interest in her. What did they do in such a situation? About 10 women were invited to a small theater room. And there, they were literally surprised by the Duchess, who, similar to her engagement night, enthusiastically filmed everything happening on her mobile phone, which, in the reviewer's opinion, indicates her obsession with social media. This observation very clearly highlighted the supposed indifference of the Hollywood industry to the Duchess's project, sharply contrasting with the usual methods of promoting major media products. Moreover, it unequivocally hinted at a personal propensity for self-documentation which, in the author's opinion, bordered on genuine obsession. Particularly striking was the bold move of some admirers who even dared to get tattoos with the phrase "aver," considering that the Duchess, as is known, borrowed this concept from several other brands and resorted to it as a forced measure because she failed to officially register the original name. It was claimed that these admirers had been loyal readers for an entire decade. Yet a careful tally of the project's active periods, accounting for all pauses and breaks, clearly revealed that its actual lifespan barely exceeded 3 years. The Duchess, of course, immediately shared all the details of this event on her personal social media account, which was quite understandable given the complete absence of press representatives at what she intended to be a grand global debut. No, it was merely a modest, almost impromptu event staged before a small audience consisting of just 11 European women. Subsequently, she appeared on a TV show to boost the promotional campaign for the very parody that viewers had already had the chance to evaluate on a streaming platform. Moreover, by common consensus, she easily invented or significantly exaggerated stories concerning Archie, Lilibet, and Harry himself. It's surprising how Prince Harry seems unable to hold public attention, constantly being overshadowed even in ventures where his involvement should have been pivotal. However, as soon as it's his turn to take the reins, she appears with her characteristic, grasping gesture, immediately seeking to draw all attention to herself. Time and again, we witness that the root of the Duchess's dilemma lies in her persistent desire to present herself to the public as someone not afraid to get her hands dirty, to be closer to ordinary people, demonstrating her true down-to-earth nature. Yet, the vast majority of ordinary people do not painstakingly process fruits or produce their own honey. Simultaneously, she relentlessly strives to appear as the epitome of chic and impeccable elegance, essentially embodying a living, impeccably styled Pinterest board. However, such an ambition to possess mutually exclusive qualities simultaneously is simply unattainable for her. Just as she failed to harmoniously combine the status of a Hollywood celebrity actively profiting from her position within the royal family with the ability to casually attend state banquets. So, what image will she choose for herself this time? We'll find out in the next episode of her constantly evolving public persona, when she will undoubtedly transform into anything to successfully launch another product or idea in her newfound role as an influential figure.